And very good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Global Weather and Climate Center, I'm meteorologist Jordan Rabinowitz. As of this evening, we deal with a Category 2 hurricane, Dorian, still impacting the mid-Atlantic region, specifically extending from South Carolina, coastal North Carolina, up towards Virginia in the coming hours this evening and into the overnight. A little bit of a different picture from this morning. We woke up to a Category 3 Hurricane Dorian, still a major hurricane, but since weekend. You do see that this evening, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. The GO-16 infrared satellite imagery, the cloud top temperatures warmer than negative 70 degrees Celsius, which indicates that the cloud top temperatures are obviously warming, therefore indicating weaker convective towers wrapping around the center, and obviously a much more ragged eye than we saw 2-3 days ago while the storm was in the vicinity of the Bahamas and all the destruction it did there. So a much weaker storm nonetheless. Still a dangerous storm, lots of wind, lots of incoming water piling up along the coastline, lots of storm surge, and of course lots of rain, and we're going to get right into that. So looking at the big picture, there's Dorian just off the coast of right near Cape Fear, actually, closer to North Carolina now, and moving north-northeast with time at a bit of a faster clip than it was the past couple of days now, courtesy of that trough, as we talked about, moving in towards the hurricane. And now it's going to become extra tropical and undergo that tropical transition from a warm core to a cold core low pressure system, meaning just different dynamics with height from the surface, meaning it'll actually get stronger with height, and as opposed to often getting weaker with height with a warm core low. That being said, the big story here obviously is still the onshore flow, still storm surge, and the corresponding flooding and rainfall that will come along with this hurricane as it continues the weekend and move up the coastline. Closer to the Outer Banks of North Carolina and beyond over the next 24, 48 hours, and then even beyond that. So let's take a look quickly at even the storm surge issue here. And this is an approximation graphic from the storm surge unit at the National Hurricane Center. You can see projected between 1 and 3 feet above the ground, meaning a bit of a flooding threat, of course, as it's still a Category 2 hurricane. So obviously coastal areas still on the northern flank of the low pressure system. You still get that wraparound. You can see we get the cyclonic flow and you get that wraparound to the north. So all these areas in the vicinity of coastal North Carolina towards even, let's say, Cape Fear and the Outer Banks, all the way here, still a very real threat for that flooding and storm surge inundation in those areas for sure. Looking at the wind map, you can see obviously the hurricane force wind gusts, the reports of them making ashore. It does actually make some legitimate sense based on the fact that the wind field expanded substantially when storms undergo the eye wall replacement cycles that we did observe. It's very common to see the storms unfold as such, where there's an expansion of the innermost intense as well as the tropical storm force wind field, and you can clearly see that it expanded quite a bit. So it's no question that they got to see some of those hurricane force wind gusts right along the coast. Fortunately, the eye never fully made it on shore. Nonetheless, still very substantial impacts. As we go forward in time, the track is pretty in concrete at this point, as the phrase would go. You're going to have that northeastward trajectory as it's moving northeast now at 10 miles an hour per the late early 5 p.m. advisory, about the same now at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Going to remain a hurricane and then become, as I said, extratropical, meaning just different dynamics, a cold core low, so just a different animal as it get towards Atlantic Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and then beyond into the North Atlantic Ocean by later on this weekend into early next week. Notice how there are top storm warnings along parts of just south of the Delmarva Peninsula between Delaware and Virginia, coastal Virginia, and then up towards Cape Cod and Nantucket as well. So wouldn't be shocked if that wind field. Remember, this is the center track of the storm. We still have a substantial wind field associated with this low pressure system, and for that reason, there is a concern for impacts across coastal sections of Cape Cod and Nantucket and Block Island areas towards the westward periphery of the center track for Hurricane Dorian as it continues to weaken and evolve. As of this evening, a lot of the bigger stories today from social media and just general news reporting overall was the tornado threat. And you often see that, having done some research myself actually in recent years, there's been a lot of focus, and there rightfully so is a lot of focus with these rain bands, these spiral band features that come ashore. And you can see them even this evening, just the most recent watch from earlier today, this evening at 6:15, as issued by the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, that you get that frictional convergence as these curving outward spiral bands move ashore, and you can get some enhanced localized rotation and basically just undulations in the actual cells that come ashore that can help to induce some low level to mid level rotation and some tornadoes. And there were some nasty tornadoes caught on live footage earlier this morning into the late this morning and this afternoon. So definitely a situation of concern there. Looking at some of just an ensemble forecast projection for this run. This is an earlier run from this morning, but still accurate for the situation at hand. Looking at the general flow, there's Dorian just off the coast of the South Carolina-North Carolina border. Going to move to north-northeast as we would expect. And then possibly, like I said, that wind field might just clip the outer banks the exterior portions, the easternmost flank of Nantucket and Cape Cod, and then move off to the northeast. So the bottom line is, as of this evening, obviously, thoughts and prayers continue to go out to the people of the Bahamas, from Great Abaco to Grand Bahama Island and beyond, and support for all those people, logistically, financially, and otherwise. But that being said, the story for tonight, obviously, just a weakening trend for Dorian, as we would expect, because of the increased vertical wind shear, as well as it's going to continue to encounter slightly cooler sea surface temperatures and possibly a landfall tonight in the vicinity of the Outer Banks in North Carolina. So that being said, that's all for now. As always, please follow us on Twitter at GWCCWX Facebook, and of course, visit us for other content on this storm and other stories at globalweatherclimatecenter.com. With that said, everyone, please have a great night. So long, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Bye-bye.